Well, welcome along to Snetterton, everybody. The final weekend of racing in the 2025 Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli and the AM Championship that are out there on circuit. We're racing on the Snetterton 300 circuit, round 13 coming up for you, the first of two races today that will see potentially champions crowned, and it could happen in this race. So Jake McAleer is leading the championship coming into this weekend. Mathematically, he could stitch up the championship in this race, which would take the pressure off for later on today. He leads the way. You take the two worst scores away from your championship tally. So Jake McAleer, if we include drop scores at this stage, is on 355 championship points. Simon Clark, a multiple champion over the last few years, is on 314 championship points, and Jake's father, which is Mark McAleer, is on 295 championship points, and most of those championship protagonists are all there at the sharp end of the grid. In terms of the AM Championship, well, Andrew Porter leads that by just 7 points coming into this race. Andrew Porter will drive the number 44 car. He's on 302 championship points. Wayne Gregory is on 295, and then just 3 off him is Shiraz Khan at the wheel of the number 15 car. So it's very tight in the AM Championship. So the car's ready to head off on their formation lap. This mixture of Caymans and 997s and 996s that we get in the main class. The AM class caters for the Boxsters, whether it either be in 3.2 or 3.4 litre engine configuration. And all of the cars are equalised by power to weight ratio in reality. So the more powerful cars, which are the 997s, they've got more grunt, but they have to run a higher weight. So it does equalise all the cars, whether it be a Cayman or a 997 or a 996. Their ultimate performance in terms of lap times out on track is all very similar indeed. So we'll get this start of this race underway very shortly. Ed Hayes is the man who starts on pole position. He had a brilliant weekend of racing last time out at Donington Park. His best weekend. He finished on the podium in both of the races. He hasn't claimed a win as yet so far in the 2025 championship season, and the light blue Cayman will start from pole position, the man who was also very quick in the testing sessions that took place yesterday. Alongside him will be Jake McAleer, and then third on the grid will be Mark. We'll give you the full grid shortly, but both Jake and Mark McAleer are free to race. So I gather that Mark has said if he's ahead of Jake, if he's ahead of his son, he is not going to let him through. He will want the win. Jake's got to win this of his own accord. So they are absolutely free to race. The final little bit of shuffling just being done towards the tail end of the field. One car that was put to the back of the grid and was given a 5-second penalty was Brian Richardson. I gather there was just something that wasn't quite right with his car when the technical checks were done. So his lap times from qualifying were nullified, and therefore he has gone the number 5 car to the back of the grid, and I gather will start with a 10-second penalty as well. So he'll be 10 seconds adrift of everybody else when they head out there. A few other cars have had strife as well. Simon Clark hopefully is there on the second row of the grid. He had a brake servo fail in qualifying, the number 23 car. He's had to drive to Porsche in Norwich and pick up the parts in between qualifying and this race to get underway. Yesterday, the multiple champion number 2, Pete Morris, had a swirl pot issue with his car. And thankfully, the Cayley family are here racing in one of the support races for the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli. They dashed back home to their garage and picked up the part that Pete needed and brought it back to the circuit. Oliver Chatham, who was the fastest of the AM drivers, he lost ABS in qualifying earlier on today. And number 44 car of Andrew Porter had problems in testing yesterday, and he says the car is still making a terrible noise. And number 33, Jess Wilkinson, she had a misfire in qualifying. The car kept going into limp mode, so she's had a few issues as well. So there's a few drivers that haven't had plain sailing as yet so far this weekend, but off they go onto their formation lap, and I can see the number 23 car of Simon Clark is there, the white and the grey and the light green car just heading through the shot now. So let's guide you through then the grid, the way that they line up for this 13th round of the 2025 Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli. So we're on the full Snetterton 300 circuit. And the way that they line up is that Ed Hayes starts from pole position, and alongside is the championship leader, which is Jake McAleer. Row 2 of the grid is Jake's father, Mark McAleer, and number 23, which is the car of Simon Clark. As we head on to the third row of the grid, Chris Dyer lines up alongside the all-yellow car of David Burke, and it's the multiple champion Pete Morris that lines up alongside ex-Ferrari racer Stuart Marsden on row number 4. Fifth row of the grid is Julian Morris, and for company, he's got the fastest car in the AM category in qualifying, which is Oliver Chatham. And then as we head on to row number 6 of the grid, it's Darren Lebet and Wayne Gregory that line up on row number 6. The 7th row of the grid sees Shiraz Khan line up alongside the driver that leads the AM Championship, which is Andrew Porter. And then next up, it's Barrington Darcy and Tom Andrew. As we head further down through the grid onto the 9th row of the grid, it is Jessica Wilkinson, the car that had those misfire problems in qualifying, lining up alongside Steve Williams. Then it's Julian Dye and Timothy Harrington. And then at the back of the grid is where we see the final 2 cars, which is going to be the car of Brown, and then the car that I was talking about, which is the car that's been popped to the back of the grid, which is the car of Brian Richardson, with those problems that he had in qualifying where the car wasn't quite compliant with the regulations. I think it was an oversight from what I gather, but unfortunately, as the car didn't comply, it's not just to the back of the grid, it's a 10-second penalty as well, so he's going to have his work cut out to try and carve his way through the order. So lots of weaving being done. It's fairly chilly. It feels reasonably autumnal. We haven't got the bright sunshine that we had here yesterday in Norfolk, but whilst we are cloudy, there's no chance of rain by the look of things at the moment, so a very small chance of maybe a few showers coming in over the weekend, but today looks very positive indeed. So the car's just getting their final bit of temperature into their control Pirelli tyres, and then we'll be away and racing for the first of 2 races this weekend, which will bring the curtain down on the 2025 Championship. 25-minute race that we've got to look forward to. And we'll see as to whether we might be crowning a champion in this race or whether it will go to the very final race of the season. It certainly will in the AM category go to the very final race because it's so close, as we say, in the AM category, with Andrew Porter on 302 points, Wayne Gregory on 295, and then Shiraz Khan on 292. And even then, Darren Lebet, who's 4th in the standings, on 279, and only 5 points off him is going to be Tom Andrew. So it is all rather tight in the AM category. As we say, in the main Porsche Championship with Pirelli category, the cars at the front end in Class 1, then Jake McAleer could do it in this race, which would really take the pressure off for the final race of the weekend. So the final formation lap has been done. Ed Hayes brings his light blue Cayman up onto pole position, so he was very quick in testing yesterday, had his best weekend of the championship season with a 3rd in the first race at Donington Park, and he was 2nd in the second of the races. We've seen him finish 2nd and 3rd earlier on this season at the likes of Anglesey and Alton Park, but he's never once finished on the podium on 2 occasions on a weekend, so it was his best result of the weekend or of the season at Donington Park with a double podium. Could he cap off the 2025 season with a race win? So the final few rows of the grid just coming up into position. The light blue car, Ed Hayes, on pole position. The car with the black front to it with the silver and the blue is Jake McAleer. Mark McAleer's car has got the silver front to it with the black and the blue. And then Simon Clark in that white and grey and light green car that sits alongside, with those quick repairs having been done to the brake servo in between qualifying and this race. So the 5-second board is about to be held aloft. We're about to see the red lights come on the gantry. Ed Hayes looking to try and get a good launch from pole position. Round 13 of the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli is go here at Snetterton. It's Jake McAleer who gets a slightly better start from the outside of the front row of the grid, but of course he's on the outside line as you head up towards Ritchie's. So as long as Ed Hayes through the second phase hangs on to it, he should pick up the lead of the race, and he does from pole position. Jake McAleer in second place, Mark McAleer in 3rd. And as they all carve their way out of Ritchie's for the first time, everybody is safely through the first corner, and then they descend into the heavy braking area for the Wilson hairpin. See Pete Morris trying to make a little bit of progress. He's alongside Stuart Marsden as they squabble for places towards the back end of the top 6 at this stage. It's been also a good start from Chris Dyer, who I think has made some good progress, but they work their way out of Palmer and then along the short straight that brings them up towards the braking area for Agostini for the first time, with Ed Hayes just about managing to lead the way from Jake McAleer. Mark McAleer there in 3rd position, and then it's going to be Chris Dyer that's there in 4th at this stage, who's managed to get himself ahead of Simon Clark, and we'll pick out on what's going on in the early squabbles in Class 2, or the AM Championship it is. So along the straight, through the kink at Hamilton, into the right-hander at Oggies, and then critical corner coming up after Oggies. That's the right-hander, which is Williams, which sees the cars onto the Bentley straight for the first time. Oliver Chatham, by the look of things, has briefly lost the lead of the AM category, but he nips up the inside of Shiraz Khan, going in towards Williams, and then if he can get a good exit, he might just be able to hang on to it all the way down the Bentley Straight, which is where they'll be heading at the moment, in towards the braking area, up towards the left-hand kink at Brundle, onto the brakes, the right-hander at Nelson, the top two now getting away as Mark McAleer has just fallen slightly further adrift in what is third position. Simon Clark is back to fourth at the expense of Chris Dyer, who's dropped down into fifth position. And the early leader of Class 2 does look as though it's Oliver Chatham. And for second place in Class 2, that was Shiraz Khan, who was going wheel to wheel with the car that was alongside him, trying to work his way through and past. But Shiraz Khan, I think, has just about hung on to it. Or maybe he hasn't actually. Darren Lebet might just be able to pick up maybe second in Class 2. Over the start-finish line, they'll work their way. Ed Hayes leads as they come over the start-finish line. The relative gap between himself and Jake McAleer is half a second at the end of the first lap of racing. Mark McAleer, Simon Clark, Chris Dyer, then it's Pete Morris, and then wheel-to-wheel further back, that is Stuart Marsden fighting away with Julian Morris, the Cayman just ahead of the 997. But the race leader, Ed Hayes, looking to try and see if he can secure his first win of the 2025 championship season. He's got 22 minutes to soak up what is going to be constant pressure, I'm sure, from Jake McAleer. Let's remember, all of these cars identical in terms of performance because of that power to weight ratio, but they will use their tyres differently. A heavier car, the 997, might struggle towards the end of the 25-minute race, whereas the Cayman, being that little bit lighter, might just be able to hang on what are their Pirelli slick tyres. Those cars that run in the main championship get a brand new set of tyres for each race weekend. So it has to see them through qualifying, see them through this race and the race later on as well. The ones that run in the AM Championship get a brand new set every alternate race meeting. As we say, the AM Championship being led in this race by Oliver Chatham at the moment from Darren Lebet and Shiraz Khan, with the championship leader, Andrew Porter, currently fourth in the AM category and running down in 13th place overall. Down the Bentley Straight, Ed Hayes still feeling the pressure, still with Jake McAleer not that far behind him. Jake was 0.3 of a second quicker through the first sector of this lap. Ed Hayes responds though and is slightly quicker than the car that's trying to hunt him down for the lead through the middle part of the lap. We've also now got Mark McAleer in third place, coming under increasing pressure from Simon Clark, who is no slouch at all. Both Mark and Simon having been champions in the past, as has Chris Dyer, who's behind them in fifth position, and of course sixth place multiple champion Pete Morris. So up towards the conclusion of lap number 2 with just over 20 minutes still remaining. Ed Hayes still leading the way. The gap was 0.53 of a second when they came over the start finish line at the end of the first lap of racing. Has he been able to eke out any larger advantage this time through? No, it's down to 0.4 of a second this time as they come over the start-finish line. So Jake McAleer trying to hunt down Ed Hayes. And I think Jake McAleer finishes in second place. That may still well be enough for him to secure the title, but we'll worry about the maths and the points as and when we get towards the final few minutes of the race, and then try and work out exactly whether Jake is going to be able to do it in this race or whether it will go to the 14th and final round of the season, because we've also got, of course, dropped scores to take into account. 14 rounds to the championship. You drop your worst 2, providing you haven't picked up any penalty points, that is, and for Jake McAleer, he'll be dropping round 4 at Anglesey, and he'll also be dropping third place last time out at Donington Park. Those will be his 2 dropped scores. So Ed Hayes still feeling the pressure. Last time through, Jake McAleer on the first of the flying laps set the fastest lap of the race we've seen, 2 minutes 4.486. Leading pair still together as they head in towards the braking area for the right-hander at Oggies this time through. And again, just coming up towards that all-important right-hander at Williams. Get the exit right, carry all of the speed out of the exit and all the way down the Bentley Straight towards the difficult braking area for Brundle and Nelson, where you're trying to brake and rotate the car at the same time through the left-hander at Brundle, and then you need to brake even more to get it in towards the right-hander at Nelson. The 997 mounting a challenge for the lead of the race, and Jake McAleer picks up the lead of the race around the outside at Brundle. Will give him the inside line for Nelson. Jake McAleer leads, but Ed Hayes is going to try and fight back on the exit of the corner and tries to nip himself back up the inside as they head in towards the bomb hole. So they've swapped and they've swapped back within a couple of corners. Ed Hayes is having absolutely none of it, and that small amount of squabbling between those top 2. Look at how much both Mark McAleer and Simon Clark have already closed in. They're not quite there as yet, but Eddie Moore fighting for the lead of the race, and all of a sudden it's not going to be 2 for the lead, it's going to be 3, and then it will be 4 for the lead of the race as they all start to merge together, coming over the start-finish line, about to complete Lap number 3 this time through. Ed Hayes still leading the way, still looking for that elusive first win of the season. Jake McAleer gets a really good run this time, heading up towards Ritchie's, but he's too far away as they head in towards the braking area for the right-hander. So it's still the same order. Hayes from McAleer Jr., from McAleer Sr., from Simon Clark, who is now looking to try and unlock the door to a podium spot, but Mark McAleer wise to that and covers him off. In towards the braking area for the Wilson hairpin. We've still got Chris Dyer there in 5th place, Pete Morris in 6th. In the AM category, it's still Oliver Chatham from Darren Lebet and Shiraz Khan. And now, by the look of things, down to 5th in the AM category is going to be Andrew Porter. So it's Oliver Chatham, Darren Lebet, Wayne Gregory, Shiraz Khan, and then Andrew Porter, the top 5 in the AM category at this stage. So not going the way that the AM category championship leader Andrew Porter particularly wanted, because his main rivals are going to outscore him, and that at the moment would make things even tighter in terms of the championships we head into the final round later on today. Up towards the braking area for Oggies, you can see still working terribly hard is Ed Hayes. Now the car was sort of bouncing around then. He's made a mistake. I did wonder if he was bouncing around on the approach in towards Oggies. He has, and he's, I think, made light contact almost with the barriers there, so it's not going to be a debut win in 2025 for Ed Hayes. He's having to scrabble his way back onto circuit. You could hear the squeal of the locked brakes. Now for poor old Ed Hayes, that has dropped him down through the order. You can see the damage to the front left-hand corner as well, which now means that Jake McAleer picks up the lead of the race from Mark McAleer in 2nd place, and now that promotes Simon Clark onto the final podium spot, and those top 3 cars are still very much together for the lead of the race, with 17 minutes of the race still to go, and they're about to chalk lap number 4 into the book before too much longer. The fastest lap of the race went last time through to Simon Clark, who still remains in 3rd, 2 minutes 4.382 from the former champion. Now Jake McAleer, who leads, has won the Class B or Class 2 champion some years ago, as it was called, but he's never been an overall champion, so he'll be desperate to try and stitch it up in the first race of the weekend, and the best possible start to that weekend would be a win. 25 points for a win, 21 for 2nd, 18 for 3rd. You pick up an extra point for Class Pole, extra point for fastest lap, extra point for drivers that actually come under starters' orders as well, and then each individual's competitors' place points, bonus points as well, get awarded up to a maximum of 10. So there's plenty of points up for grabs. And for Jake McAleer at the moment, he is on for the points for the win. He didn't qualify on pole, so he's not going to pick those up. And at the moment, he has also not set the fastest lap of the race. But he does have over a second advantage between himself and his father, Mark McAleer, who's there in 2nd place, but has still got shadowing him Simon Clark. Chris Dyer very much on his own now in 4th position, and Pete Morris has got a very lonely 5th place, because there's a long, long way back before we see the yellow car, which will be David Burke, who completes the top 6. And then in 7th place, that's going to be the recovering car of Ed Hayes, and just behind him is going to be the Class 2 leader, the AM Class leader, which will be, as it was for the vast majority of the race, it's going to be Oliver Chatham. So there is Oliver at the wheel of the Boxster. He's got a nice bit of daylight between himself and Darren Lebet. Wayne Gregory, Shiraz Khan and Andrew Porter still complete the top 5, top 6 in what is the AM category at this stage. So first 10 minutes of the race elapsed, 15 minutes to go. Race advantage is a full second at this stage, for which Jake McAleer again is going to stretch that by maybe another 2 or 3 tenths this time through, because he was quicker than his father, Mark McAleer, in 2nd place by about 3 tenths of a second through the first sector, and he's about another 2 tenths of a second quicker through the 2nd sector. So it's going to be up to, I don't know, 1.5, 1.7 seconds, the lead advantage by the end of this lap. It's also a comfortable lead in the AM category for number 69, which is Oliver Chatham. You can see he's got a reasonable amount of daylight between himself and the car that's 2nd in AM at the moment, which is going to be Wayne Gregory. So for Oliver Chatham, we've not seen him at every single round so far this year. He wasn't at Brands Hatch, he wasn't at Alton Park, but he's already taken 3 wins in the AM category so far this year. So when he's been out, he's been quick as Oliver Chatham. At the moment, he leads AM and leads it by 1.6 seconds. Whereas Jake McAleer leads overall and leads by 1.7 seconds. And that's largely because Mark McAleer in 2nd place is still having to watch his mirrors. He has still got Simon Clark right behind him as they turn their way through the left-hander at Palmer and start to work their way up towards the braking area for Agostini. If it stays as it is at the moment, then the maths say that Jake McAleer will be the champion at the end of this race. But we've still got over half of the race to go. 1.8 seconds was the lead advantage. And again, through this lap, Jake McAleer is nearly 0.8 of a second quicker than the cars in second and third places respectively. So he's further just edging away from Mark and Simon Clark, who continue to squabble over what is second and third position. Nearly 4 seconds off them now is Chris Dyer, and he is 7 seconds ahead of Pete Morris, who's got 8 seconds between himself and the car that sits there completing the top 6, which is David Burke at the wheel of the all-yellow Cayman. So the best of the fights is for second and third. They descend upon the braking area for the 6th time at Brundle and Nelson. And this would also be a good haul of points in the Teams Championship as well for RVR Racing with Cartec Care and Hartec, which is the team that Jake and Mark McAleer raced for. In the Teams Championship, they were on 700 points coming into this weekend. So they'll be hoping that they might be able to lift the Teams title as well, which is a subcategory of the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli. Now this time Simon Clark gets a good exit coming out of Murray's. He's closing onto the coattails of Mark McAleer as they come over the start-finish line. Jake McAleer still trying to just edge away all of the time. Mark McAleer might have to go a little bit defensive on the run towards Ritchie's. He doesn't take the full sweep into the corner, then needs to prevent the undercut from Simon Clark, so we'll cover that inside line as they're heading towards the braking area for the Wilson hairpin. Onto the brakes, down a couple of gears, try and pick up the apex again, concentrate on your exit coming out of the corner. Look after the tyres as well, because they've got to see you through the other race later on today, which will be a further 25-minute race for the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli. Mark McAleer utilising all of that knowledge from all of the years of having driven Porsches to try and still keep Simon Clark behind him. Battles in the AM class continuing as well. Looks as though Jess Wilkinson has found herself in a little trio of cars that she can squabble with. I think that's Steve Williams in the orange and light blue car that is just ahead of her, and then just off the front of that is going to be Brian Richardson. That's the man who started off the back of the grid and is continuing to make some progress. So they come over the start finish line. They'll be fighting away for what will be 17th position, 16th, 17th, 18th, something like that. So that's a good little fight towards the tail end of Class 2 at this stage. So on towards Ritchie's they will make their way, and Jess Wilkinson, hopefully with those problems behind her that she had in qualifying earlier on, that misfire. Back to the fight for second and third place. Mark McAleer this time just having to move right across the nose of Simon Clark. He was a little bit slower coming out of Nelson, Mark McAleer. He was aware that he was struggling on the exit, so just had to cover off Simon Clark, who now is going to see whether he can unlock the door, maybe around the outside at Coram to get the inside line as they come up towards Murray's. Is he going to try it? No, he's too far back, so just hops onto the brakes, concentrates on the exit again, and again he gets a slightly better exit than Mark McAleer, but he's not as close this lap as he was on the previous one. He'll pick up a bit of a toe and start to edge up to him as they head up towards Ritchie's corner, but he's too far away, and now that they are slowing it up even more, it's allowing Jake McAleer in the lead of the race to pull away. 4.2 seconds to the good now is Jake McAleer in the lead of the race, and I think Mark McAleer might just be struggling a little bit at this stage of the race. So whether he's worked the tyres too hard in the early stages or whether the car isn't quite responding to his inputs at this stage, but at the moment he's about 2 seconds a lap slower than Chris Dyer, who's currently in 4th position. Back towards some of the fights going on in Class 2 that are just making their way up towards the conclusion of the lap, and as they head onto the brakes at Murray's and start to accelerate their way over the start finish line, this is going to be fighting away for something like 3rd, 4th, isn't it, in Class 2 at this stage. So in fact 2nd and 3rd, isn't it, in Class 2, I would have thought. Let's just have a quick look. That's Andrew Porter, so that's the championship leader, and then right behind him is going to be the number 56 car that sits right behind him, and that will be Brown, won't it, that's next up, which will be Jason Brown. So that is 6th and 7th, no sorry, 5th and 6th I should say, in the AM category. But back to the squabble for second, and again Mark McAleer having to call on all of his racing experience to try and keep Simon Clark behind him. He's doing a grand job at the moment of doing so. And again, he is just, I think, a little bit slower coming out of Nelson. But Simon Clark is close, but not quite close enough to nip his way through and up into second place at this stage. He got close last time coming round through Corham. I would say he's even closer this time. Is he close enough to try and attempt up the inside at Murray's? No. Again, just thinks better of it at this stage. Concentrates on the exit, and again, he's slightly quicker at corner exit than Mark McAleer. All of this squabbling for second and third is playing beautifully into the hands of Jake McAleer, who still continues to lead the race overall and still continuing to lead in the AM category is the number 69 car in the hands of Oliver Chatham. Now, Oliver lost his ABS in qualifying and called into the pits and briefly had it reset, so he was happy that the car was going to be good for the race. So we haven't seen him in every single round so far this year, but he's already chalked up 3 wins in the AM category and is comfortably leading AM this time through. He's actually got one of the Class 1 cars, one of the main championship cars, between himself and the car that's second in AM at the moment, which is Darren Lebet. And that car will be the other light blue Cayman that we've got, which is the number 55 car of Stuart Marsden. It's quite nice that he's got that little buffer that he can utilise should he wish. So some of the AM category cars now getting caught by the front runners and moving neatly out of harm's way. That was Timothy Harrington's car that was placed a lap down. Tim's running 11th in AM at the moment, 19th overall. Through the right-hander at Oggies and then up towards Williams once more. The squabble now for second and third is 5.2 seconds nearly adrift of Jake McAleer, who is 7 minutes away from potentially being crowned the champion, subject to official confirmation for this year. But till you see that checkered flag, anything can happen. And Jake McAleer has driven superbly well so far this year. He opened up his account with 2 wins at Silverstone on the national circuit at the beginning of the year. He won one of the 2 races at Anglesey. He scored a win at Oulton Park. That was his 4th of the season. Then we went back to Silverstone, but on the Grand Prix circuit in August. And last time out, we were at Donington Park. So far this year, it's 6 race wins for Jake McAleer. He's had a couple of seconds, he's had a third, he's had a 4th, and he had that poor race at Anglesey in the second of the 2 races there, over in Wales on the 10th of May. But it has generally been a solid season when you think your worst overall finish is just outside of the top 6, and after that then you're into 4th places. Then that goes to show you're having a good season, and Jake McAleer sure will be cheered on if he were to be the champion, because he has been so consistent this year, other than that one blip at Anglesey. His father Mark, though, still under pressure. Simon Clark is not going away, is he, for 3rd place? Desperate to try and work his way up through the order. Simon lies 2nd in the championship standings coming into this weekend, but he only drops 1 single point in terms of the championship. He had a horrid weekend at Anglesey, where across both of the races there, he only scored a single championship point. So you take your 2 worst scores out of the equation, and that means that, yeah, Simon Clark is now just a point that he will drop in terms of the championship. Recovering there is Barrington Darcy. So Barrington, who's stepped up from Class 3, the Boxster Cup, up into Class 2, and just had a small problem there. In terms of the AM category, which is what Barrington Darcy runs in, looks like Andrew Porter, Darren Lebet and Wayne Gregory will go into the final round with just 10 points between them all, having done the maths. So it is going to make it very tight indeed heading into the final race of the season, which will take place later on this afternoon. But for Jake McAleer, 4.4 seconds, he can just control the pace at the front. He's eased off the last couple of laps. Yes, there's been a little bit of traffic he's had to deal with, but I think he's now realised that, yeah, I can just afford to back the pace off a bit. 4.5 minutes of the race still to go. 10 laps just about to be completed. And when you've built that advantage, you can then just control the pace from the front. And if you lose half a second per lap, it doesn't matter, because you're well in control of it. You can up your pace again should you need to. So he'll just be coming out of Murray's. Mark McAleer and Simon Clark still rooted together over 2nd and 3rd position. So 5 seconds back from them now is the 4th place car in the hands of former champion Chris Dyer. So it's 997 from 997 from 997. The first of the Caymans is Chris Dyer, who's in 4th place. We've still got Simon Clark trying desperately to unlock the door on second place. He's set the fastest lap of the race, so he's still on for the extra championship point for the fastest lap. But that was very early on in the race he set the fastest lap, because since then he's continually been bottled up behind Mark McAleer, who's done a really good job of just positioning his car to prevent Simon from squeezing his way through. Again, there's that little weave around on the run up towards the left-hander at Palmer. Anything to try and distract the car ahead, but that won't put off Mark McAleer one iota, albeit it runs a little bit wide there coming out of Palmer. That's a glimmer of hope and opportunity for Simon Clark. He's got the inside line heading in towards Agostini, and that small little slide from Mark McAleer was the small mistake that Simon Clark was after. The number 23 car goes through and picks up what is second place in the race. Mark McAleer drops down into third. He's trying to fight back on the run up towards the left-hand king at Hamilton, but Simon Clark has got the job done, I'm afraid. As for Ed Hayes, after his off and into the barriers with that small damage to the front of his car, I think he has subsequently retired the car. He's in the pit lane somewhere, so it wasn't to be for the man who started from pole position. Such disappointment for him. Ever looking for positives, though, the grid for our final race of the season is based on the second fastest times that get set in the qualifying session, so it will see Ed line up once more on the front row of the grid in pole position for the final race of the season. So there's Jess Wilkinson. Now she's got problems with the front right-hand corner of her car. She'll be destined for the pit lane, I'm sure, at the end of this lap. So you see the smoke billowing off the front of the Pirelli tyre, and she might not even make it round to the pit lane next time through. So there's some damage to the front corner of it, and surely she's going to have to pull off. Yes, she is. Yet the tyre, I think, is already off the rim. So you can see the damage to the front corner. And I'm afraid Jess Wilkinson, in fact the radiator's gone, isn't it? You can see the coolant pouring out of the front of the car, so she's clipped something somewhere that's damaged the radiator, and she retires in a heap of steam up at Ritchie's corner. So that will bring about localised yellow flags with where she's parked the car, and hopefully that will be the only requirement for them. So that's Jess out of the race. One of the AM class cars. Still leading AM, though, is number 69, Oliver Chatham, who is on course for his fourth win of the season in the AM category. So he's not right up there in terms of the championship points, largely because he's missed 2 weekends of racing. So that's 4 races that Oliver Chatham has missed. But as I say, when he's been out, he has been quick, Oliver. So he's about to come over the start-finish line, and with 1 minute and 10 seconds to go, he will complete his 11th lap of the race. Has he got the fastest lap in AM as well? I would imagine so. 2 minutes 9.9 is the fastest lap in AM. Yes, absolutely. So yellow flags on the approach towards Ritchie's corner. A bit of coolant on the braking line as well that just needs considering. There was a squeal of tyres behind, which suggests that somebody might have perhaps just not realised that there was coolant down there at Ritchie's corner, but hopefully any moment has been gathered up. But for Oliver Chatham, it's been a fairly untroubled run in the AM category in Class 2, and that's got big implications for the championship. That's Shiraz Khan. So he was one of the drivers that was hoping to be right there in the reckoning, Shiraz Khan. He was third in the championship standings, and I do think that he might have got caught out on the coolant that Jess Wilkinson had popped down there. So for Shiraz Khan, that is not ideal, and he's not the only one caught out on the coolant, because Julian Morris has also had a spin as well. And you can see there's a bit of damage to the tail end of his car, so that's catching a few cars out, I'm afraid. And because now we've had a couple of cars spin under yellow flags, it does look as though the red lights are on the gantry, the red flags are out around the circuit, and that is going to bring to an early halt our Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli. Now, we will go back a lap from those results, so Shiraz Khan might actually get away with that part spin, because you go back a lap to the lap prior to the red flag coming out, and Shiraz hadn't had its spin at that point, so that might actually work out okay for him in terms of keeping the AM Championship nice and close. But for the main championship, if I've got the maths right, it does mean that Jake McAleer is going to be, subject to official confirmation, the overall champion for the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli for 2025. He will be absolutely delighted with that one. Yes, it might have finished a lap earlier than he would have wished, but he was in the lead for pretty much the whole of the race and was never particularly troubled, was he? So he will be very, very pleased indeed with the way that things have worked out for him. So the cars making their way around. Oliver Chatham, therefore, is going to pick up the top honours in what will be Class 2, and then we'll see as to whether he can make it a double win in Class 2 when these cars come back out later on this afternoon. We'll see them back out around about 10 to 4 this afternoon is the timetable time for the start of the final race of the season, which will be round 14 for the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli. We can confirm some results for you shortly as well, but there is your Class 2 winner, Oliver Chatham, heading in towards the Parc Ferme area, where all of the cars will go through the requisite checks. And in fact, also at the end of this weekend, in fact, he's going to take the checkered flag twice. So he comes up onto the start-finish line, and we'll have to stop. There's a few cars that I think maybe we're trying to line up back on the grid, but we are way past 75% distance. That will be classified as a result. So let's just confirm some results for you then for round 13 of the Porsche Club Motorsport Championship with Pirelli. Jake McAleer claims the win, and with that, if I've got the maths right, he's the champion, subject to official confirmation. Mark McAleer in second place, and Simon Clark finishes in third. Chris Dyer was fourth, ahead of Pete Morris in fifth place, and sixth was David Burke. Seventh place was the AM class winner, which was Oliver Chatham. Stuart Marsden was in eighth place. Then it was Darren Lebet, who was ninth and second in AM, and Wayne Gregory in 10th completes the AM podium in reality. Shiraz Khan was there in 11th place, with Julian Morris in 12th place. Andrew Porter was in 13th place, and 14th place went the way of Jason Brown. Then it was Barrington Darcy ahead of Tom Andrew. 17th place was the number 42 car, which is Steve Williams, ahead of Brian Richardson. Then it was Tim Harrington, and Jess Wilkinson retired with a lap to go, and also retiring whilst leading the race, making that small mistake and bumping into the barriers, was Ed Hayes. He will start, though, the second race from pole position, because that is based on the second fastest times from qualifying. So thank you for joining us for the Porsche Club Motorsports Championship with Pirelli. We've got another race for them coming up at around about 10 to 4 this afternoon. But we've also, of course, got the Boxster Cup coming up for you, and that'll be taking place around about 2 o'clock. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you later on today. Goodbye.